Trystie's Quest, or Kit, King of the Pigwidgeons. By Greville MacDonald. Chapter 6. The peppermint bullseye again. Crickety explains Kit is nearly afraid, but not of Pigwidgeons the lark's nest. Kit had to go carefully and could not keep up with the people he was following. The light was dim and heavy clouds must have hidden the moon. He could hardly see what was underfoot, except that it was all green as grass. Every few steps he would fall down into chasms and holes. Yet he would not stop to think whether he was hurt, but would climb up and run on. In this way he managed not to lose the others, who kept disappearing and then coming into sight again in the most unexpected places. There could not be much difference in size now between himself and his Pigwidgeon folk, though the little shepherds were certainly smaller than himself. The sheep all looked like lambs. Their bells still tinkled, but further and further away. There was no other sound at all. The only thing that seemed to him quite unusual was the bounciness of the ground he trod on. Even when he did not fall, the ground would sink with each step, and then, as if with a spring, it would give him a gentle jerk that made his next step almost a jump. Yet it didn't feel exactly unsafe, only uncertain and annoying, because he was constantly slipping into the gaps, and the bounciness was most unequal. Presently he got on firmer ground, and, though now it seemed to sway gently to and fro, up and down, the bounciness ceased. The path too was much plainer, but black and very lumpy. Smaller paths joined this one from right and left. When at last the moon appeared again, Kit thought he must be walking along the boughs of a giant tree, and towards its trunk was it the ash? And that the bounciness of the cross-country was due to its irregular layers of leaves on the strong twigs. Kit would have looked into this possibility, but at the very moment when the moon came out as big round as his hoop, a strange odor of peppermint filled the air, and an awful creature pounced upon him from behind a shimmering green hill. It barred his path and made the most shocking grimace the boy had ever beheld, far worse than any he had given his own little people in the gable loft. Its eyes were as crooked and ill-matched as sneaking could make them. It grinned like a mandrill and showed the horridest yellow tusks. The grin grew and gaped, but it came back again like elastic just in time to prevent the top half of the creature's head from being cut right across by the smile and falling off. It was actually because the creature so very nearly grinned too far that Kit began laughing instead of feeling afraid. This made all the difference, and Kit could hardly stop laughing when he saw the creature was only old Crickety, with his brass breastplate and red buttons. "I told them so," said the Pigwidgeon, with a curt nod, as though he wouldn't be one bit more respectful than he'd got to be. "I told them you would." "Would what?" asked Kit, when he managed to check his laughter, and, with childlike courtesy, offering his hand to shake. "Sniggle," the creature answered, ignoring Kit's offer of friendliness. "They said I couldn't shockle you, not after that guzzly bullseye." "I only wanted to be friends, Crickety," said Kit, feeling as if he ought to be sorry, but hardly understanding the creature's words. "Friends, that's it. I knew it. And please call me Mr. Not So Chummy," the ugly thing exclaimed bitterly, edging further and further away. "Nice and friendly. Call it a bullseye and let me break my teeth on it. Mouths full of them. And then sniggle." "What does sniggle mean, please, Mr. Crickety?" asked the child, laughing again at the funny word, and at calling him Mr. "You ought to know when you're at it every moment. Sniggled at me when I tried to shockle you. And I tried it on Parson too." Made his tie wriggle, chattered all his teeth out, smiled sickly, rolled over. "Oh yes, Parson was shock-led. But you only sniggled. You've got to be shock-led, Master Kit, before we can Google your eyes out." Kit was beginning to understand the fellow's speech, but it was as much as he could do not to laugh again. He didn't feel one bit afraid of being shock-led, which he understood by this time was feeling afraid. The Pigwidgeon put his hand to his mouth and threw something out. "There go more of my blessed teeth," he exclaimed, sucking away at his peppermint. "I'm so sorry," said Kit. "It don't taste bad," was the reply. "I'll boggle it yet. Plenty more teeth cut and come again, and it is peppermint worth a guzzly fortune. Don't tell Parson I've got it, might make him friendly." Then he looked suddenly behind him, as if afraid of something. "Don't you want to be friends with him?" asked the boy, looking ahead to keep the fairy people in sight. Then Crickety whispered hoarsely into his ear, his very words redolent of peppermint, "Friend means danger. If anyone wants to shake hands, safer to boggle him on the nose. Then they don't sniggle." "But what do you want my eyes for?" asked Kit, as though it were all a good joke. Why, because they're good for nothing, said Crickety very rudely. Oh, but they are, exclaimed Kit, looking up at the brilliant stars as they twinkled in and out among the leaves. There you are, was the rejoinder. What do you want to look up in that sky for? Nothing there, it's dangerous, lose your way, said the Pigwidgeon. That's not true, said Kit firmly. Father finds his way by the stars. Snouts, sneered Crickety with his bitter smile. Kit didn't trouble his head to understand, for he was thinking about the big stars and trying to realize what sort of country he was in. What's underneath? He asked. Nothing at all, nothing, answered Crickety, as if he must not allow there could possibly be anything unless dead larks in their holes nests you call them. They're not dead, exclaimed Kit indignantly, they sit on their eggs. They fly up every morning to sing to the sunrise. Snouts, again said Crickety positively and flinging a few more teeth away. He had not yet got through his peppermint. When they stop their nasty twittering they're dead, I tell you, dead as ashes. It's a fresh lot comes up like teeth. They're always at it with their hullabalooings, can't snoggle after 3 o'clock. Amen. Did he mean A.M., not to say in peace? Worse than your recorder. Blow larks and recorders, I say, and give me peppermint bullseyes. How did you Google them? Snouts. Wouldn't I snoggle guzzily if I could Google all the larks' beady eyes out? And all the bulls too. This word guzzly was the only adjective the creature had for approval. If he wanted to praise anything, he spoke of it as if it tasted good. Kit thought guzzly was just a very ugly pig word. Finding the conversation rather stupid, Kit took out his own little pipe, not the recorder, and began to play. He wanted to see what would happen. But, oh dear. Nothing but screechy came, and, what was worse, he found it helped Crickety to sing a song that was all crooked. Kit remembers the words perfectly. His memory is much better for poetry than the multiplication table because there's sense in it, he says. When he first repeated the song to me, his face was aflame with indignation, and he made me promise never to tell Honeypot about it. There's nothing at all in the sky up above but moonshine and spangles and sparks. There's nothing below but dead ashes of love in the nests of the twittering larks. Oh, dancing with singing birds all in a row, dancing and singing our Pigwidgeons' woe. There's nothing whatever to keep us alive but fear in his creaky old cart. He fills it with bones when he's out for a drive, to stuff up the hole in his heart. Oh, springtime and summer they come and they go, springtime and summer our Pigwidgeons' woe. It's fear who protects us, and bids us believe that friendship means best dog on top. At pity he'll gobble, and honeylove thieve, and he jumps with a creak and a hop. Oh, blackbirds and robins and Christmassy snow, blackbirds and robins are Pigwidgeons' woe. Of love and such nonsense he bids us beware, for they shame our best champion himself. They only love life who live lonely, and care for friends, he says, safe on the shelf. Oh, torn-tits and babies, they come and they grow tomtits and babies are Pigwidgeons' woe. No Pigwidgeons ever sit two on a bough for its lickings and kickings and tweaks. When larks mount the sky, it's because of the row of the chicky birds' twitter and squeaks. Oh, kisses and cuddles and hearts all aglow, kisses and cuddles are Pigwidgeons' woe. After the first verse, Kit felt so miserable that he stopped piping and put his fingers in his ears. But now the song was taken up by hundreds of others. Their voices were so screechy that there was no music in them, and so loud that stopping his ears was no use. He shut his eyes tight, as if that would help. But when the song was done, the Pigwidgeons began to yell at one another about him. It's coming, said one. He's turned guzzly pale and his eyes are bulgy, though he thinks they're shut. It's coming right enough, Shockle is. Got the spoons ready to Google them? They're fine guzzly eyes. Shuts his eyes because he's half shockled of being quite shockled. Cockalorum. Pig-a-snorum. He's done for. But Kit was nothing of the sort. He opened his eyes and saw monkey-like creatures all about with faces far more hideous than his own Swedes and parsnips. Their coats were red and blue and green, the jolly colours of his gable skylight, but now looking bad and horrible. Even now Kit was not afraid. I imagine he was too angry and too disgusted for that. So he took out his recorder and began to play. The first note of it must have made him feel very happy, because the coarse music ceased and the vile creatures got further from him, constantly looking over their shoulders as if afraid of something. Was it the creaky cart? He played on, tune after tune, or rather song after song, for the recorder's music was always singing. Soon he heard nightingales singing above, sheep bells began to tinkle behind, and a flock of the curliest, softest sheep came romping about him. Then followed the fairy shepherds and ploughboys dancing round about their sheep, in and out, and so merrily that the sheep all frisked and frolicked, and stood on their hind legs and joined their little cloven hoofs together and baaed and shook their merry bells. The 2 dogs sat down again, one just in front of each of Kit's outstretched legs. But very soon they all began to scamper and dance away. Kit followed, but could not keep pace with them, though he raced his best. They ran up a steep winding hill. It was all bright and sunny here, with pastures and buttercups and rosy apple trees all about. Suddenly the fairy folk were all lost to his sight by a bend in the road. When Kit got round it, nothing was to be seen but a little gate in a high wall. Had they gone through it? Or over the wall? Everything now was so absolutely silent that Kit was very nearly afraid he might be really beginning to be afraid, but not of the beastly Pigwidgeons. Yes, they were beastly, and he was sure he was right to say it. Not of them, but of his aloneness. If he couldn't catch up with them, he knew he shouldn't be able not to cry. He must push through the gate. It wouldn't budge and there was no latch, but he saw a cord hanging by the gate. It must be a bell. He would pull that, and then if no one opened the gate, he would sit down and play the recorder to keep from crying. He pulled. There sounded a sudden sharp-toned bang, rather than clang so loud and quick that it was almost like an explosion of music. He held on to the cord, but felt that he had pulled it off, and that he himself was slowly falling down and down and down. Still he held, it kept him from falling too fast. He heard a distant harsh voice singing, "There's nothing below but dead ashes of love in the nests of the twittering larks." Still he was going down, still he held. He did not fall, because even now he wasn't a bit afraid, and so, quite naturally, soon found himself quietly walking on soft turf. The huge silver moon was still shining. He began to shiver with cold and excitement. He saw a great curved wall by him made of interwoven dry grass and moss and big downy feathers. He stood on tiptoe, holding on to a projecting head of speargrass, and looked over the edge. There he saw a great lark sitting on her eggs. The long cord he still held had something dragging at the end of it. He must look and see what it was presently, but must first pipe a tune to Mrs. Lark. He tied the cord to his belt so as not to run any risk of losing it. Then he sat down and played a song, which he certainly did not blow into the recorder, and which, quite as surely, had never come out of it before. Peace pipes in the sky, hope sings in my breast, when is up on high, my mate sings the best. The moon may outfly the clouds of the west, her wide open eye peeps into my nest. But no lark will sigh for the moon a cold guess. She's queen but can't buy the warm eggs in my nest. Why, that's Jonas's fairy recorder, the big bird exclaimed in her sweetest voice. Then she looked over the edge of her nest. Oh, it's you, is it, Kit? You look tired and cold, child. Why, you've got Robin's airball, to be sure. I'm glad, because he'll want it soon now, although it's burst. Climb up and creep under my wing. But mind the dear eggs. Kit was glad enough to get into the warm nest. He cuddled down under the bird's wing as she shook and folded it over him. Her big brown eyes looked lovingly into his, and he fell fast asleep. End of this chapter.